Today I will explain a film from 2017, titled The Hatton Garden Job. Spoilers ahead. Enjoy the content. The film opens with a dramatic scene that centers on Basil, a renowned thief with a daring scheme. He dares to steal the next day with his criminal associate Judas Jack from the vaults of the city's rich bankers. The bankers report the robbery, and Detective Frank Baskin shows up to look into it. One of the most pricey watches in the city was among the valuable items that Basil stole. He does not, however, hoard his riches. Danny Jones swiftly converts his stolen items into cash with the help of professional fencers. The deal goes through without a hitch, and Basil escapes unharmed, enjoying the luxurious rewards of his bold crime. But Basil's unexpected wealth is just temporary. Within 3 weeks, his criminal partner Jack makes a horrible mistake and sells his riches to the wrong people, which leads to their immediate imprisonment. Basil and Jack accept their fate despite the harsh reality of their situation, since they are aware of the inherent hazards associated with their line of work. The Hungarian mafia's Zoltan and Basil both share a cell. They grow friendly and intimate. One day, Zoltan phones his supervisor and asks him to look for a potential intruder. Basil is given permission to do this profitable assignment. Basil visits Erzsébet Landos, Zoltan's boss, 3 years after his release from jail. She is a well-known mafia boss in Hungary. There, Basil learns Erzsébet plans to break into a safe at a jewelry store in Hatton Garden, central London. Because of the establishment's tight security measures and the need for an access code to open the safe deposit box, he is initially apprehensive. There are also alarms and CCTV cameras put in various places. However, it seems like Erzsébet has already made everything ready. Basil just has to discover a means to open the safe. Of course, Basil cannot finish this task by himself. Thus, he encounters Danny Jones, a criminal. Basil explains the plan for entering Hatton Garden. But he needs the help of other specialists. Danny has a significant network of contacts since he has been active in the world of theft for a long time. But he does ask for some time to gather his pals. Later, Detective Frank Baskin, a former police officer who had earlier been successful in apprehending Basil, is seen at a stadium. Mark Ford, one of the town's most influential figures, is introduced to him. Mark seeks Frank's help to remove one box from the Hatton Garden safe after learning that the Hungarian mafia ordered Basil to break into the safe. The following day, Danny and Brian meet with Basil. Brian confirms the mission setting despite not knowing Basil. The safe-breaking strategy is described by Basil. Brian insists that everything must be done properly. Nothing negative is what he wants to avoid. They will have to deal with the mafia if they make a mistake. Eventually, Basil gives in and says he'll bring 2 pals. An artisan carrier will be one of them, and an informant and a driver will be the other. The craftsman transport is operated by Terry, and Kenny is the driver. They are old, but they have knowledge and experience in robberies. Frank, on the other hand, is interrogating Judas Jack, a former colleague of Basil, in an effort to get information. A couple Hungarian mafia men had told Jack that Basil would gather a gang of elderly criminals to rob Hatton Garden. Jack is certain that they won't be able to access Hatton Garden because of the complex security measures in place there and the age of the criminals. However, Frank requires that Jack submit any new information he learns. The squad, including Kenny and Terry, then congregates. They will be participating in the Hatton Garden robbery operation, Brian assures them. Kenny and Terry are doubtful they will arrive safely when they discover their destination is Hatton Garden. But Brian convinces them by saying that Basil is knowledgeable about every facet of the security system. Danny adds that the huge risk is undeniably justified if their projected gain this time is greater than $100 million. They all come to an agreement once they meet, and the story starts. Every day in Hatton Garden, Terry watches the guards' movements. In order to prevent the transaction from being tracked down later, Danny, who is on duty, buys one piece of equipment from the market at a time. Kenny has to stay with the car carrying the stolen treasure while he's on duty. As a down planner on duty, Brian acts as though he wants to keep his jewels within the structure. Even while wearing disguise, Brian is able to view the location of the safe and the building's security system. When everything has been inspected, Brian and Basil will construct a hole to enter the plan after evaluating it. Finally, Brian determines that because Easter is on a weekend, they would complete the assignment on that day. Elizabeth receives the blueprints that Basil has developed. The mafia leader gives out the essential details, including an alarm code and a security code. She asks for a piece of a $14 million diamond. Additionally, Basil will become the stakes if the operation is a failure. Frank unexpectedly stops Basil on his way home at night and forces him to go with him. Basil is warned by Frank not to do business with the Hungarian mafia. Basil fears that the heist plan will fall through because he is aware of it already. Frank promises not to interfere with the plan, but he does ask for a share of the loot. The following day, Elizabeth pays Basil a visit and expresses her disdain of Frank approaching her on her task. She seems to be aware of what's happening. She thinks Basil and Frank are friends. He stands up for himself by admitting that Frank, an ex-police officer, was the one who locked him up. She still feels let down and wants the stolen stones returned before Easter. The day of execution finally comes after much waiting. Basil starts getting ready for work. He goes to cover the Hatton Garden cameras. He then waits for his pals to approach the car and gets a text from Frank asking him to take box number 175 at that time. They all slowly approach the door and destroy each and every camera. Basil then uses the code Elizabeth gave him to access the security room and turn off the alarm. After successfully shutting it down, Terry and Danny enter with some rubbish bags holding some equipment. Kenny is observing the incident while standing outside. First, Danny and Basil descend in the elevator. They quickly slice through the bars blocking the safe. There is now only one door separating them from the space housing all of the priceless treasures. They utilize a large drill that has been set up so they alternate holding the drill slowly in order to unlock the enormous safe. After an hour, just half of the wall is still impervious to damage. Later, Basil goes with Terry when he wants to use the toilet. Basil, however, senses something odd while waiting for Terry and promptly alerts Frank about it. Despite being turned off, the alarm still emits a signal. Frank is asked by Basil to see if they have been captured or not. Frank is unable to help, sadly, as the alarm is connected to a private security firm rather than the police. Basil wants to call off the expedition out of fear, but Frank pushes since he needs the cargo. He threatens to contact his colleagues if Basil continues to refuse. Terry overhears the conversation and assumes Basil informed the authorities of their heist. The alarm has suddenly activated, and Basil says he's summoning a former police officer because he doesn't want to disrupt the plan. Additionally, he claims that everything is still safe since he kept his promise to his police colleague to provide a safe box. Later, Brian comes back to continue drilling. After almost 3 hours, the massive roadblock is finally broken through. They still have to move the vault that is obstructing the opening they have made, though. The cabinet needs to be hydraulically moved since it is hammered into the concrete at both the top and bottom. Brian is setting up the hydraulic equipment when he collapses from tiredness. It looks that the cable is also broken. Without a choice, Basil phones Kenny to take them up at the side entrance and ends the assignment. Kenny asks what happened as they get to the car. Basil has little influence over the issue, all he does is tell Kenny to drive the car and go. He is aware that the mafia will make his business more difficult. Frank wants the package and threatens to report all of his friends if it is not delivered in 24 hours. Basil is now experiencing some stress. Sadly, he is unable to influence the circumstance. Basil is taken aback when Danny, Terry and Kenny show up in the late afternoon. They come to say that Brian's condition has gotten worse and he won't be able to finish the mission. Basil is gloomy since he thinks the police already know about their actions. However, Kenny claims that when he went past Hatton Garden this afternoon, nobody was there. In other words, nobody is conscious of what they are doing. To repair the damaged hydraulic cable, Danny has also bought a new one. They ultimately make their way back to Hatton Garden to complete the task. They quickly swap out the hydraulic cable once they get there. The lone vault was swiftly moved out of the way by the hydraulics. One by one, they move into the secure area. And now, in front of them, are several storage containers that are loaded with diamonds and other priceless items. They each do what they do best. It is Basil's responsibility to use the tools he possesses to open every box. Danny and Terry unpack everything while dividing their assets. Basil is aware of the package number 175 that Frank requested and takes it right away. He eventually bids Frank and Elizabeth farewell after successfully obtaining the box. Danny and Terry will not see Basil again. He contacts Jack as soon as he enters an alley to request to be picked up and driven out of this neighborhood. When Basil gets there, he presents a priceless diamond as a sign of appreciation. Frank may be seen at the bottom, counting his share while brandishing a revolver. He asks for additional in addition to his order box because he is now very eager in seeing the riches. Basil is about to give Frank a bagful when Elizabeth enters and stops him in his tracks. Basil takes issue with Frank's threatening to file a complaint against his organization if his order is not delivered promptly. Fortunately, Elizabeth's strength outweighs Frank's, and she saves him. Elizabeth exits after receiving her wish. Frank agrees not to disclose Basil and his gang's crimes as he points a gun at him. Mark is instantly given the box that Frank has brought, and up until now there has been no knowledge of the package's contents. While Terry, Danny, Brian, and Kenny are having fun with their loot, Basil escapes London and freely enjoys his riches. Sadly, it does not last long since 6 weeks later, the police figure out who broke into the Hatton Garden safe. It was all due to Kenny's carelessness in utilizing his personal vehicle to survey the area before they committed the heist. One by one, the culprits are apprehended and given 6 years in jail. After Jack is seen getting his part of the stolen stones, he is also detained. Since no one is aware of Basil's true name, he manages to avoid capture. As a result, no one can give their information when questioned. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to stay updated on future videos. Leave a like to support the channel.